Has a little bit of music. This is actually a song by one of our Black Girl Ventures that is still here by Alicia Levels Moore. She's in Durham. She is a Black Girl Ventures change agent. So this is our theme song, and I wanted to share it with you all because we're in a challenging time, but we're all still here. We're still here together, and we're able to come together. Y'all can bounce a little bit. Loosen up, Jabari, loosen up. All right. I just wanted to give y'all a little taste of that. That's our theme music. Just wanted to share that with you. Welcome to the Mom Your Business podcast and Teachers and Mom Your Business podcast. Today is special because we were supposed to be launching, and we are technically still launching a new version of our show, a new updated version of the Mom Your Business podcast, because I now have a lovely co-host and also have a new segment. So I wanted to start the show off today by introducing my new co-host, and that is none other than Miss Neferteri Strickland. Nef, would you say hi to the people?
Hello, people. Hello, Tanya. Thanks for having me on. It's been an exciting journey with you and the other change agents from Black Girl Ventures. I see Marion is in the room. Hi, Marion. Tiara is here as well. If you all haven't met Robin, she's a great addition to the group. And I'm just really happy to be able to connect in this time with the coronavirus, and everybody's in their home. And it's just, there's a lot of noise right now. So I'm really grateful to share this space with you. Thanks for having me.
So Neff, would you, we're going to start by just kind of doing like a little short interview with you. And I wanted you to kind of share your story about, who you are and where you came from. Tell me your Savannah story a little bit and how you came to be a BGV change agent.
Well, it's interesting. I have been monitoring the news feeds back home, Savannah Morning News. Most people know about Savannah because of River Street. They green the fountain. You can drink downtown, open containers, but it has a Southern charm that really resonates with a lot of people. And so my parents, they're both retired military, and they retired in Savannah. So I finished up high school there, Beach High Bulldog, and really just make my way around the East Coast. So I've lived in Rhode Island, and now I'm in Montgomery County, which, as you all know, if you're from the Philadelphia area, we were first to be shut down. So going a little stir crazy at times. The children are home. They've been out of school for a couple of weeks. I work for the government. I'm also a reservist, National Guardsman with the 28th Infantry Division. So I wear a lot of hats. As a change agent, I'm in the education space, tech and education, and looking at the intersection of students K through 12 that transition into the workforce or higher education. So my venture, or my adventure with Black Girls Venture, is really to find the opportunities and the holes in that intersection. So loving the ability to connect with those in the community of the greater Philadelphia area, and looking to partner with those that are interested in helping those K through 12 students transition into the workforce or higher education.
Thank you. So we do have the chat box open. We're going to be using that because we have a couple, if you want to ask any questions. But today's show, we're really going to talk about what everyone else is talking about, but we're going to talk about it a little differently, which is COVID-19. But we really want to talk about it because from that standpoint, we want to really share some things with you, but we're not allowed to use the word corona. That is going to be a no in this chat. If you do use the word corona, then me and Neff are going to play a little drinking game. That means anytime somebody says corona, one of us me and Neff are gonna have to take a drink. And now,
do I participate in that too?
Oh yeah, Jabari, do what you gotta do, man. Do what you gotta do. Do what you gotta do. So, I'm not really much of a drinker, but when I did, yes, just like the cafe pressures, exactly. So, but when I did drink, I was a huge, I drank beer. I prefer beer, and so I was telling them when I had this idea that this is what we were going to do, and she thought that she would share with me the health benefits of beer, which is just gives me more reason to drink beer.
Well, there really are some health benefits to beer. It improves memory. It reduces stress, which I think we all need that right about now. It strengthens bones and prevents kidney stones. So I look at it, and as I was saying, I'm a military brat, so I spent some time in Germany, right? So Reichshausgebau, when the water isn't doing so well, you have options, right? What are we picking? Are we going to pick this? No. So I don't know if hard cider counts, but that's my choice.
Yes, yes. So that's actually my choice too. I actually went to try Evil Genius for the first time because I've heard a lot about it. They're fairly local too, so that was what I decided to do. Really quick story because I said I don't really drink anymore. When Better Box opened, Better Box is a local food truck in Philadelphia. They make cheesesteak rolls, and they had a food truck when they started. They have a physical location now, so they still do kind of both. But when they opened, they were at the off of by where the um, Arnold Ashe tennis thing is. There's a brewery right at the top of that hill, and they had their truck there. And so while you were waiting for the food, they had just opened and we were really long lines. And so I went in and I got a beer. And as I sat down, the guy looked at me. He said, Miss, I think that beer's got a little high IPA in it. I don't really know. So I'm thinking, oh, it's peach and there's something sweet. That's all I'm looking for. And so, and he was right because like after 2 sips, I was pretty done. That was pretty much it for me. So, so again, anytime somebody says, Corona, Neff and I are going to have a sip and dedicate it to you. So thank you so much for coming today. But in all seriousness, we really want to talk about this shift in the workplace and how this shift has and will continue to impact the investment that all of us have to make in our most valuable resource, which is people. And as defined, human capital is a measure of the education, background, and intelligence, qualifications, and experience, leadership, social skills, creativity, and overall health possessed by an individual or population that make them an asset to their community, including employees. So I want to take this opportunity for Neff to introduce our guest. He's no stranger to Venture Cafe. Actually, I guess I kind of came to the Venture Cafe via him in some kind of indirect way, but I just want to, let Neff introduce our guest today.
Absolutely. So I haven't had the pleasure of meeting you in person, and it might be some time before I do. So virtually, we'll have to do for now. So our guest today is Jabari Jones. Jabari is the president of the West Philadelphia Corridor Collaborative. It's the largest coalition of businesses in West Philadelphia. Jabari, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you guys for having me. It's awesome to be here.
Absolutely. So we really want to better understand the collaborative and the members of your workforce. Who are some of the members of the collaborative?
Sure. So we are a business association that has every major business, or every business, I should say, that falls along 12 major commercial corridor retail shopping nodes in West Philly. So we have everything from 30th Street to City Line Avenue, as far south as Elmwood Avenue, and then as far north as the Park. We don't cross over into Manayunk, but we do have all of those businesses on the West Philly side of Fairmount Park. And so we have over 2,500 members that fall on those commercial corridors. And I'm sure many of you may have already visited some of them, like 60th Street, 52nd Street, Baltimore Avenue, those major commercial retail shopping avenues that are well known for having large numbers of small businesses. And so we have businesses that range from everything from your mom and pop coffee shop to your convenience stores and delis to your grocery stores and fresh markets. We have concrete mixing businesses. We have a lot of construction and real estate folks, as well as a pretty nice handful of like social services, nonprofit organizations as well.
Wow. So that is a pretty diverse mix of businesses. What's the singular impact that you're hearing from them? Where are the overlaps and the pain points during this time?
Well, the biggest challenge that we've been seeing so far has been through this new order that has really shocked a lot of companies, this non-life sustaining business shutdown. And so that actually shut down close to 95%
Wow.
of our companies.
Wow. Wow.
Yes, it was a really
Wow.
significant shutdown. At least the order before this one, where it was considered what they consider non-essential, you know, was probably close to more than 50 or 55%. But with this new order on life-sustaining businesses, you know, most of your corridors are shut down. And I spent at least one day last week just driving around a couple of our avenues, and I just saw storefronts after storefronts that are shuttered, entire once thriving commercial districts are like ghost towns. So it certainly had a really strong impact in our community.
So Jabari, when you say that, I mean, what are you seeing as far as how are they managing? How are they managing? How have you been able to calm the storm and with, for lack of a better term, in some way?
So there's definitely been some challenges in how some of those companies have started to kind of manage this. So the first thing I think that it really has exposed, and I think this is something that's consistent against all, you know, business communities that are brick and mortar. You have a lot of businesses that did not have proper financial plans and savings plans to be able to weather the storm for a contingency like this. So when the governor's order first hit for 2 weeks, there were a lot of businesses that said, okay, we can do 2 weeks. We can keep everybody paid. We can make sure that, you know, bills are going to be paid. You know, we typically have that much of a cushion. But when the order started to change and the order turned into people saying, actually, this is going to be indefinitely until we give you further notice, then people started to panic, because now it's like, well, do I make that investment in human capital in terms of supporting my workforce and making sure everybody keeps being paid, et cetera? Or do I take those dollars and retain that into a savings for me and my family and for other, you know, really important expenses that, you know, we know can't be diverted. And so we've had a lot of businesses that have come to us, that have been talking to us about, you know, where they are in the process. I think one of the values that they have here in West Philly, being with our organization, is we immediately sprang forward to figure out ways that we could bring resources to those companies. So we launched a specific website specifically for COVID-19 related resources for small businesses. We immediately started some of our advocacy work in terms of how do we get, you know, small business relief measures passed at all levels, and then figuring out how we take that information and get it to constituents. And so they've been a really cool mix of city, state, and federal resources that have been created. There are some that are currently in talks about being created. And our goal is really to take that information and make sure that it gets to every business, because our goal is we want to keep people employed. We want to keep the workforce thriving here. We know what happens when people are laid off by mass numbers and all the negative things that that causes, not only for, you know, people individually, but as a community at large. And so there are resources available that businesses can tap into that can keep those workforces employed. If there are plans that can be put together in terms of financial planning or savings, et cetera, that we can help businesses kind of develop. You know, the ultimate goal right now is to keep businesses afloat and to keep employees being compensated.
And so, Jabari, how do you foresee being able to do that as far as the resources of helping them be strategic in preparing for, you know, this time and when they come back to business? You know, what do you see? So you mentioned the financial planning. Is it, you know, creating a strategic plan? Is it sitting down and they even going through their books? Is there things like that? Like, how do you foresee being able to help?
So I think it's two things. I think the first thing is about making, and I think this situation, maybe this might be one of the golden egg moments of this situation that you can bring out, or silver lining, is that it shows all businesses the value in having a financial emergency contingency plan.
Absolutely.
So all of your companies right now that are thinking, I didn't need that stuff. Why do I need to go to that workshop? Why do I need to go to Venture Cafe for that session? You know, a lot of those companies are sitting at home right now saying, man, I really should have went to that session. And so one of the things is we want to make sure that programming like that is going to be frequent, that it's going to run in every neighborhood, that people are going to really be sitting down, and we're going to encourage them to bring their accountants or the financial person in their business with them to sit down and say, okay, in the case that this ever happens again, where we have a 2-week or a 4-week shutdown of business operations, what do we have to put in place today or over the course of the next couple of months so that we're going to be okay? The other thing that we've been trying to do, and we've been seeing this is a really interesting point, is innovation. So we have a lot of companies that did not really sell or were not in the essential or life-sustaining category. But what we saw was businesses are looking at figuring out innovative ways to raise and make money still in this economy, whether that's there are new products we need to sell during this time, or there's new innovations or ways we need to change our business, delivery services and things of that nature. And then also we've been seeing a lot on the gig economy, which is really interesting. You know, a lot of people that have been typically like Uber and Lyft people that would, you know, do transportation. Now I hear that industry is not doing as well in the city. So one perfect example that I heard about today was somebody was doing was a little bit of liquor couriering business where they was, so, but great model though. So the concept, you take that drive to Delaware, you take that drive to Jersey, and you send your friends a mass text and you tell them you're going to pick up, you know, liquor, and it's a $15 delivery fee or $20 delivery fee, I think, whatever, and they're going to do it 2 times a week. And when I was first thinking about it, and if you did it 2 times and you had a pretty diverse friend base, you know, if you get 50 people, that's $1,000.
That's some nice cash, man.
That's some nice cash, right? So, so that kind of innovation is always around. And I think that one of the things that like troubled and challenging times do is they really inspire people to be innovative, because now there are a lot of really innovative people at home thinking about, okay, either my job has laid me off, or I'm working from home, or my business is shut down. But what is it that I can do today to make some extra money to keep these bills flowing in? So we've been seeing a lot of that as well.
Yeah, so right before Neff comes with a question, I just wanted to really quickly, one industry, and I know it's a lot along 52nd Street, but I know quite a few hairdressers, right? And so one friend of mine that's a hairdresser, she actually created a take care of your hair at home kit that had her products, it had a scarf, it had some things, and now she's doing some virtual styling tips, you know, online. What can you do, you know, to keep that hair, you know, where you want it? So to add to your point, Jabari, of the innovation, these are the things that we're going to have to do to maintain.
Absolutely.
Now they say, is it necessity is the mother of innovation? Yeah,
that's true. That's true.
So Jabari, I want to take a couple steps back. Want to know about you, your journey, and really the mission of the collaborative. Absolutely.
So I guess this kind of started nearly 5 years ago. We've been in existence, and it kind of started from this. It's interesting too, because if this challenge had existed still and we hadn't come along to solve this problem, I'm really curious where like some of the advocacy talks and some of the benefits would be in this situation. Yeah. So we started about 5 years ago, and the purpose of the collaborative, it really started from a strategic plan that I was leading for one of our commercial corridor business associations. So I was on the board for the association that runs Lancaster Avenue. And so literally we did a strategic planning process called Defining a Modern Business Association. And it was looking at what does the typical small hyperlocal business association need to do to innovate in the 21st century? How does it create revenue? How does it generate value for its membership? What are the services it should be providing? What is it? How should it be acting? You know, given that there are things like technology and all these other trends that are kind of disrupting the way that those organizations typically operate. And so we took a little bit of some of the implementation money to answer one of the key recommendations in that plan, which was, you know, there's 269 commercial corridors throughout the entire city, right? And in West Philly, we have close to about 20, if you include West, Southwest, and some areas of Northwest that don't want to call themselves West Philly, but that is just, you know. So the goal was, if we look at those groups, they all have a completely similar mission, sometimes word for word mission on what it is they do. But back then, nobody talked to each other. So we had all these groups that literally were doing the same thing, but because I'm Lancaster Avenue and you're 52nd Street, or because I'm 60th Street and you're Parkside, you know, we don't talk to each other. And so literally we put together a conversation to moderate pretty much some conversation on, well, why is it like that? Why aren't we collaborating? And so we had about, from April 5th, 2015 to August 2015, you know, we moderated some discussions. We ironed out some wrinkles and personal dynamics and other things that had happened so many years ago, what have you. And pretty much what came about was all of those small groups. We took the largest 5 in the 3rd councilmatic district, which is West Philly. And we pretty much had these conversations. At the end of it, these groups kind of came together and said, you know what, we actually see that there's some real value in collaborating and talking with each other about information sharing. How do we share best practices, and how do we kind of advocate together? But the organizations kind of also looked at it and said that we also know that the culture of our organization, because again, we're business people, we can self-analyze pretty well. And they can say, because of the culture of our organizations, we always know we're going to be hyper-local, narrowly focused on my 10, 12, 15, 20 block radius. But what they wanted to do is they wanted to come together and say, we want to create this other organization or this other entity that, for lack of a better word, forces partnerships between all of us. Someone that can look at what's happening on all of our corridors, figure out points of cooperation, someone that can like bring together the advocacy component of all of our commercial corridors to advocate for the things that we all want and we're all saying together, and be able to create some new resources by being a larger entity than the traditional, really small commercial corridor merchants association. And so what we ended up creating together was the West Philly Corridor Collaborative, and I transitioned from the moderator of those discussions to becoming the first president. And so from today, we've gone from 5 business associations to 14 organizations and 12 commercial retail shopping districts. We have so many diverse neighborhoods. It's been a really amazing time in terms of figuring out how you can create something that is valuable to all edges of West Philly, right? You have so many diverse communities. You have University City that finds value in participating in something that folks on 60th Street are also finding value in, or Baltimore Avenue, where it's one of the more affluent neighborhoods in West Philly, finds value in participating in something that Lancaster Avenue, that is on the edge of the Promise Zone, that has some of the, you know, more severe cases of poverty, also finds value in collaborating. So we've done a great job in bringing the people together and making sure that everybody sees value in delivering something for every one of our commercial areas every year, whether it's city investment, whether it's some kind of advocacy, whether it's something simple as streetscaping and planners, to the consumer events that we've been doing. So last year we were insanely busy with all sorts of things. We had the Juneteenth celebration on 52nd Street. We had $2 strolls. We had a night market in Overbrook. We had a jazz festival. So all those really cool events that we've been able to support since getting started. And so I guess this is going into my 5th year. You know, we've been able to accomplish a lot in terms of advocacy, in terms of resources, in terms of helping businesses actually feel like they have a voice in things that happens in their community, to better government relations and keeping all elected officials, holding them accountable and responsible for promises that are made and for things that we need.
So before I ask what we can do to support the businesses in the collaborative, I'd like to know, what does a virtual work situation look like for your members?
That's really an awesome question. So it really differs, actually. So we've been talking to folks. One thing that we did is we formed a partnership with, I think it was GoToMeeting. And I forgot what it is that we paid for it, but we paid for it, and then we have it, and then pretty much we've paid for a reduced subscription cost for some of our members. And so some people have used it and they're liking it. A lot of the office solutions, office space companies, people that are professional services, people that are like tax, that HR consultants, they've been using it. But because a lot of our businesses are retail brick and mortar and they sell a product or a physical thing, the virtual space has been kind of difficult for them to get into. So at first we were telling people, actually, there were people that were calling in and we we're like, well, maybe you might want to think about things like Amazon storefront and things like that to be able to virtually sell your products through e-commerce. Then we had that little problem where Amazon comes out and they say, well, we're only going to be priority shipping essential items.
Right.
And so then it was like, oh man, well, we just got on it. And now things have shifted again. So now we're looking at different e-commerce platforms and helping businesses to look at those things. But I think the big problem that's been exposed here is that we have so many businesses that have just resisted technology for so long. And now you're in a period where technology is the only lifeline or one of the very few lifelines left for your business. But because you have resisted it for such a long time, the hill to get over in order to access it and use that technology for your business is proven to be really, really steep. And so we try to provide what resources that we can and support businesses. But at the end of the day, a lot of this has kind of exposed the need for businesses to start thinking about the virtual world and figuring out how they innovate their products and services.
And so, and Jabari, just really quickly on that note, have you found that those businesses that were resistant, what type of businesses are those? Are they, and what is the demographic? I'm just curious. I'm imagining that it's an older demographic, I would imagine.
Yeah, so we have it's closer to most of our brick and mortar businesses, the businesses that really need to be looking at virtual services. You have about close to 60 to 65% are older demographic folks. We have a number of businesses that are like, that the owner now is the owner when the business started. And that might have been 20 years ago or 30 years ago, 15 years ago, what have you. And they've run their business the same way for 15, 20 years. And they get to the point where they said, I've been doing this for 30 years. Why do I need to change? Why do I need to use that? I didn't use that before. And we have very few what we call legacy businesses, which are businesses that have transferred from generation to generation. And with those businesses, that's where we see the innovation. That's where we see younger people that are easily adapting to Skype, to Zoom, to GoToMeeting, to using these. They've already had some kind of digital platform that they've used to sell their product or service, whether it's Amazon or eBay or some other service, or even folks that design their own e-commerce and are using the post office, UPS, or FedEx to get their product delivered. But I think the big problem is that the majority of companies we have, especially the brick and mortar, your boutiques, your hair salons, your nail salons, some of those folks, they have constantly kind of relied on doing business the same way. And there hasn't been any real focus on how do we innovate this in a way that we could deliver this product theoretically if we didn't have the storefront. And because of that, that's kind of where we see ourselves in this situation.
Yeah. And I was just thinking back to what you were saying about the emergency financial plan and folks really seeing the need for that. How can we help with connecting some of those businesses to those resources to be able to help them to really begin to develop that strategy going forward?
Absolutely. So I think the first step is through webinars and Facebook Lives. And I see, I was on one of yours actually, it was a while ago. And I was like, that's exactly what we need. We need service providers. We need people that have that knowledge to connect with the friends that are in their network through Facebook Live, Instagram Live, or whatever other platform, and just start having conversations like this. Because there are a lot of people that can just like literally listen to this and say, okay, that clicks. That's something I should be doing, et cetera. The other thing that we're pushing right now is we're really pushing the city and the state to provide some kind of support for businesses that are going to be applying for any of the programs that have been developed for small businesses. So right now, the two big ones is the city, the state has a loan program that they just came out with, I think yesterday. It's an initial $60 million pot of money. And so pretty much you can get a loan for up to $100,000. And whatever you spend on that $100,000 for payroll, rent, utilities, and other essential costs, they'll actually forgive it from the loan. So it becomes a grant. So, and that's a great product. And the SBA has another product where it's a loan up to 30 years at 3.75% interest. I think the maximum is $1 million you can go after. But at the end of the day, although those are great products, they don't mean anything if people can't access them. So if you can't put together your package in terms of your financial statements, your tax returns, put the narrative in place about your business, put the narrative in place, because one of the requirements on the federal loan is that you have to submit your COVID-19 rescue plan. Like, how am I going to take this money and bounce back from it? And so if you haven't been thinking about that, or you're going to put in there that, hey, I'm just going to wait until this is over and I'm going to run my business the way I've always run it, you're probably not going to be very successful in getting that loan. So how do we figure out things like that? And we may be even doing some webinars and some other chats about how you put together your loan package and some topics and things like that, and trying to rely more on these virtual resources to help businesses.
Yeah, that's excellent. That's excellent. I think that's really key. And this is the greater, another point to that is the gig economy are going to be those that are not going to be able in a lot of ways to access these opportunities to be able to to bounce back those that, because you're going to have to be able to produce tax returns. If it's only 2000, I know the city one, it's the 2018 tax return. And so that's why it's important to really do business the right way, which is what I try to tell, my moms all the time. It's really important to do business the right way.
Absolutely. Yeah. A lot of businesses are getting that wake up call. In terms, there's a lot of companies out there that don't like to show taxes, and you may be making money every year, but there's negative $5 on your income, on your taxes when you file a return. And now that's really going to inhibit you from participating in a lot of these programs. Even the city has a grant program, actually, a small business relief grant program that they launched, I think 2 days ago. And I know the bill was voted out of city council this morning to increase that. And so you can get a grant of up to $5,000 if you're a business that makes less than $500,000 a year. And then I think if you're between $500,000 and $3 million, they might give you a grant award anywhere up to $25,000. So it's completely forgivable grant. You don't have to pay it back, what have you. But one of the criteria they look at is your tax returns. And they want to see businesses that, are hiring employees, that employees are on the books, because they're interested in the wage tax and making sure those employees, so if you're paying employees under the table, and you may have 10 employees that you pay like that, right? You might lose in a grant application to somebody that has less employees, but they put their employees on the record. And at the end of the day, the city wants to invest and spend grant dollars with companies that are hiring in the city. And so it's been this is a big wake up call and a reminder to everybody out there that's like, hey, I don't want to put anything on the tax return.
The right way.
Got to do it the right way.
Got to do business the right way.
So, Jabari, if you could wave a magic wand and get your collaborative and those in the community to support that idea, what would that big idea be to at least sustain your members, let's say over the next 2 weeks to a month?
So there are two things that we've kind of been seeing that have been emerging that I really like. So and there's been a lot of, and this, I guess, the value of a collaborative is that we see what every neighborhood is trying to do in West Philly, and we try to amplify the ones that we think are more successful than others. So there are two things that we've seen that are really important. And I think if they were amplified district-wide or even city-wide, they would have like a really big impact. So the first one is from the Garden Court Community Association in West Philly, and they've created this thing called Takeout Tuesday. And so it's pretty much an ability to try to support restaurant and food-based businesses, because they're still in business, but they're in business only for either takeout or delivery only, right? So the goal of Takeout Tuesday is pretty much, when you do the math, of saying that if everyone in a community made the conscious decision on Tuesdays that they were going to get either their breakfast, their lunch, or dinner, whatever, use Grubhub, DoorDash, or Uber Eats, or whatever is your favorite app, or go pick it up, and you made the conscious effort to support businesses, those businesses would see, actually, in some cases, a bump of revenue, right? So you actually might be able to use that as a mechanism to make sure that your employees are being paid, that the bills are being paid, that your businesses are going to collapse, et cetera. So even if each neighborhood took a day where it maybe it's not just necessarily, maybe Tuesday is just Garden Courts Day, and there might be some other days on other neighborhoods. Maybe Thursday is, Cobb's Creek Day or something like that. And you try to make a conscious decision where you can. We know that it's still always difficult times, and some of our businesses have been adapting by trying to make their pricing more efficient too. We've been seeing that in Garden Court, where they've been trying to create meals that may be smaller, but still really awesome for lunch or what have you, that are a little bit more price effective for people that might be struggling during this time, and then figure out ways where you can do that. So that was one of the really cool ones. The second one that I saw that was really cool was there's a really big push for gift cards. So gift cards are a really easy way to do for the businesses that offer them online or what have you, for the restaurants or what have you, even those that may not be shut down, or for the types of regular businesses that you might use on a regular basis, considering if you have the financial means to purchase a gift card, even if it's like 25 bucks, 50 bucks or what have you, because the money that they're making from that is something that we've been seeing that they were willing to invest back in their employees, keep them afloat, keep bills paid, and pay for those essential things.
I think that's awesome. So what are your thoughts around the ideapreneur or that budding entrepreneur that wants to provide a solution in this environment, or as we begin to recover from this, that may want to become a part of the collaborative? How should they position themselves and how can they communicate with you?
Awesome. So the best way, we have a contact us page on the website where you can not only sign up for our mailing list. So that's the first thing I recommend everybody to do, even if you're not in West Philly or you're just interested in these kinds of updates. It's at our contact page. If you go on a regular website, I see Precious shared the link, and you click up at the top, there's a header called, I think, Contact Us or Get Involved. And if you go on there, you can sign up for the website and literally put your email address in. So this way you start getting email updates of things. And so we've been doing a really good job of sharing the updates on advocacy, updates on legislation, updates and things like that to help people like get through this kind of on the storm. The other thing is, in terms of getting involved, if you are a business that's located in West Philly, you should try to find your closest business association. So we have another page on our website, and I believe I can write, in fact, what I'll do is I'll try to write the link out. We have another page on our website as well that supports, that shows all of the business association organizations in West Philly that are a part of the collaborative. So your membership in any of those associations gives you a double membership with us. And so literally they typically always have monthly meetings. Well, traditionally they have monthly meetings. At some time every month, it might be a little bit while before those are scheduled back up again, but figure out how you can start going to those meetings. Getting involved with your local business association is like the best way to kind of get involved. There's a mix of entrepreneurs that have all sorts of diverse knowledge capital that, you know, you may find value from. You may find people that are working on similar businesses, similar industries, and they may have some partnership connections between what you're trying to do and what other people are trying to do. So I definitely would recommend those are the steps that you might want to take if you're interested in getting more involved with us. And then, of course, you can always follow us on Twitter. We're pretty active on Twitter, right, Tanya?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And we like to have fun sometimes, too, you know?
Yes, sir. So we had a question from Morgan. She said she lives in Garden Court, but she didn't hear about this. What are ways, and I guess Jabari just answered that question, ways to get updates. So we've listed the updates in the chat. I also shared an update to a gentleman by the name of Lee Wilson, who's a Facebook friend of mine who does custom gift cards. So if anybody wants to tap into that resource, I put the Facebook link in where he talks about the small biz gift cards, and then you can actually click on the link once you get into the group and be able to go through the ordering process. And actually it's a part of a bigger network where they actually list your business online going forward as well. So I wanted to make sure that we shared that. Thank you so much, Jabari. So Jabari, just to kind of follow up on Neff's last question, what signals, and then we're going to open it up for Q&A, what signals will let businesses know they are out of the weeds? What should businesses be kind of like looking for to see, you know, not just the flattening of the curve, but what are some other things that they should really be looking for to see that they are starting to come above board?
Right. So I would recommend businesses right now that what you should be doing if you're in business is you should be making either whiteboarding it out or keeping a notebook or Excel spreadsheet or what have you of all of the bills that you've been deferring. Right. So if that's rent that's late, if that's utilities that are late, if that's a level of payroll that's late or forgiven, or you've talked with your employees and said, hey, you know, I can give you guys 50% and I'll give you the other 50% or whatever the situation is, to write out those expenses, right? Because even when the COVID-19 issue ends and the city opens back up, those bills are still due. Now, yes, it's true that the sheriff has said that she's not going to pursue evictions, and utility companies have said we're not turning anybody's stuff off, but your bill is your bill. And eventually, the 60-day, 90-day, it's going to come due. Right? So you don't want to get caught 90 days from now and you're in your business and next thing you know, the light shut off because you just forgot that you ain't paid that bill from 60 days ago. So really, I think businesses should figure out and understand what those costs are, figuring out all those bills that you've been deferring, and you can say that you've been fully recovered from this crisis when all of those bills have been zeroed out because you've caught that money back. And so figuring out the ways to be able to do that, I know it's going to be a pretty big recovery effort and a real stimulus effort when this COVID-19 thing passes. You're going to have, all the service providers are going to get flooded with money. It was from federal, state, and city funds to help businesses, and businesses are going to have a lot of opportunities available. So I also encourage businesses to take advantage of those, stay informed, watch the news. I know it's hard to do, but maybe watch Fox Business or whatever channel or whatever.
Not Fox.
Not
Fox. CNBC, not Fox.
Watch Fox Business, CNBC, but watch those. And when they mention,
CNBC, yes.
when they mention programs that are things that you might be interested in, look them up. The good thing about the internet, is you can find like the answer to almost any question, like whatever. And so if you literally see the governor on or the mayor on and they're talking about something they're developing, look up the program, see what the requirements are, see if you qualify, and take advantage of as many programs as you can, because there's actually a lot of free money out there. I mean, in my time, I've never seen the city give away a $5,000 grant with no strings attached.
With no strings attached.
No strings, no wild application process.
Yes.
They don't need to know, your significant other's credit score. They're only asking for, they literally have like one little Google form, like put in the basic information and send me 1 year of taxes. And we're going to make a decision. So use all the resources, use all the free money, use the loan money that's out there. If it's something that your business can afford. Now, remember, for the loan programs, they are loans. And other than the forgivable portion of it, you're going to have to pay those back. So make sure that you have structured it. And if they do, because one of the things we don't want businesses to do is go out there and apply for all these loans. And then you're $300,000 and then the crisis is over and the government starts knocking on the door wanting their payments. And unlike your private lenders, when you owe the government, there's no limit on what kind of resources they can deploy, what collateral they can take, in order to be able to get their money back. So you want to always make sure that you can sustain the debt. If you get a grant that has some kind of conditions, follow the conditions. Don't get your business in trouble because you decided, hey, I'm going to take the $10,000. I said I was going to give $5,000 to my employees, but instead, I'm going to pocket that in my fund for Disney World when it opens back up. You don't want to do that because that causes all kinds of other problems. And you want to be really careful. Use the money the way that you need to use the money. Be saving and sparing. Try not to spend money on things that you don't need to spend money on. And what I guess positive things about the shutdown is there aren't that many distractions out there that you can be using to spend your money on things that you don't need to be spending money on. And so use those kind of tips and try to, weather the storm.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks, Jabari. So I want to, open it up. Anybody have any direct questions for Jabari, for me, for Neff? I think that this has been a really great conversation. I'm so glad Jabari was able to come on because he's so resourceful, and because I didn't even know about the state one. I didn't see the information about that one. So I want to certainly make sure that we continue to share that. I've been doing email blasts regularly to my list of 400 plus, just trying to keep them up to date on all of these resources that are available. So any questions? And no, Jen, the word was Corona. I just had a drink just because I'm thirsty. So COVID-19 doesn't count. It had to be Corona. So
I was actually. I stopped because you stopped, but I was.
So Jabari, to the point that you made earlier, this is Tracy, and the point that you made earlier. So I was doing a session last night in Australia. and talking about leadership in uncertain times. And the first thing I talked about, which is really kind of counter to my other 2 points, was cash. So making sure that you as a business owner, you as an individual has your sights on what's your cash position and what is coming down the pike. So how can you manage that? How can you think about those things? Because at the end of the day, my other 2 things are like communication and compassion. It's hard to do those other 2 things and do them authentically and from a very transparent voice if you don't have a good idea what's coming down the pike. So I completely agree. It's kind of counter to me, lovey, huggy, feely kind of person. But the reality is that's incredibly important. So incredibly valuable advice.
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Any other questions?
I had a question for Jabari. Jabari, so we have the sense it's obvious that everybody, all businesses, all individuals are going to be hurt by the crisis. My question for you is, what's your sense of what types of businesses or companies not only may be hurt by the crisis, but are the most likely to possibly not be able to recover from the crisis? Might close their doors, might not be able to, might go out of business because of this.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I think it's not, I don't know if I would say industry specific. I would say that a lot of your hair salons and nail salons, businesses that are service-based, that are cash businesses, have the most risk, not only because of just the business structure and the traditional types of those companies, but I would also say that they tend to not be the best managers of cash.
Correct.
And they're businesses that typically take a lot of time to get to their service, right? So, especially if you've been to one of the braiding salons or
watch yourself, Jabari, watch yourself.
Luckily it's virtual, so nobody can attack me here. But I'm just gonna say it might take between 2 and 6 hours sometimes to make that, and it's a good business in terms of revenue, but it's a business that takes time to accrue that revenue. Yeah. And so for those types of businesses, depending on how big or how long the crisis comes and how many expenses have to be deferred, those might be businesses that may have a hard time recovering in terms of the crisis. The other thing you're going to see is businesses that don't have a cash management strategy, period, and there are a lot of them. There are big businesses too. So it's not all just a small mom and pop. There might be construction companies, right, that have, or real estate companies that have invested in shell properties. They've gotten loans, and then contractors are considered non-life sustaining. And next thing you know, I'm sitting on this property. The mortgage is banging me $1,600 or $1,500 a month, and I can't develop it to flip it or rent it out or whatever because of the crisis. And that may cause a lot of real estate to go underwater, because eventually they're like, I just can't sustain this debt, or they go into foreclosure or sheriff's sale or what have you with those. So I think that the service-based industry is really going to take a hit. I also think that even though people don't think about this as an industry, your small banks are going to take a hit. Your small banks and nonprofit financial institutions are going to take a hit because there's so much zero interest money out here now for loans. Are you going to go to the financial institution up the street that's going to charge you 10% or 8% or even 6% if I can get it for zero? Probably not. So, and the same thing with, other loan programs in general. If there's grant money that floods the market, you're going to have people saying, hey, I love those guys or that credit union or my banker or my financial advisor or whatever, but I'm getting free money on this side. And that could really hurt a lot of the smaller, more community-friendly, financial institutions and credit unions, because they don't typically have a lot of cash to really sustain operations other than their lending side. So you may have some of those groups that may also feel a really tight strain during this time.
Jabari, I hadn't thought about the CDFIs until you just mentioned it. I think that is, I hadn't really thought about it, and I know all of them, and pretty much all of them in the city of Philadelphia, from WARC and Entrepreneur Works, Finanta, all of those folks. When you think about it, I hadn't really thought about them. That's kind of interesting that you would mention the hit that they're going to take, because I would imagine, You know, if I need money and I can get free money, the chances of me going to WRC are going to get slimmer to none. So
and they're gonna say, and you're gonna be like, hey, I love you guys, you great,
yeah,
you know each other, but hey,
yeah,
it's business, you know. And
yeah,
that's unfortunately the
yeah,
case. And I think
yeah,
the city is looking at, I think Councilwoman Bass is looking at, you
yeah,
know, infusing some cash to those groups so that they
yeah,
can provide
yeah,
zero interest
yeah,
products or whatever things is. But until that comes out, you
yeah.
know, they're kind of vulnerable too.
Yeah, those the real estate is interesting. At 1 second, Jen, the real estate is also interesting too for those of us that are looking for properties that may some of these buy and hold guys will be forced to release some properties in,
That's true.
in
That's true.
a reasonable way.
That's
So
true.
you know that's another thing. But go ahead, Jen.
So I'm wondering, I'm sorry, I'm coming in late, so you might have already
Okay.
covered this, but when you're looking at other industries, so one of them that I've been looking at is like the people who own gyms and especially like have private workout classes. They've been going online, which I haven't done yet, but I have to try. And so I'm wondering, Jabari, are there ways that you imagine the most vulnerable businesses that you described kind of creating another pathway? So like another example is there's a salon down the street that said, like, I know a lot of people aren't going to come in to get their hair colored, but we'll send you your mix that you like whatever we normally do so that you can do it yourself if you're already a client of their store and or the salon. So like, are there ways that you think are particularly interesting or that could even open up new ways of doing business once we're back to kind of normal?
Absolutely. I think that there's going to be all of those industries are really going to have to innovate, especially those service-based businesses. I know at least two businesses that have done similar to that. They've done either the kits or they've done, there's at least a business that sells like shampoo and conditioner products and things like that they've had to kind of innovate. So they take their blend, bottle it, and try to ship it out to folks to use it. For gyms, I did see one innovative gym, I think, and I don't remember if it's the one on Lancaster Avenue or the one on Parkside, but they're bringing back those old school aerobic videos. You know, really interesting. You know, innovation. There you go. You know, put the little, get the little step stool right in front of you. You know, it's like, but that's the innovation, and I think too that virtual components allow, right? Is like if you can live stream something and you charge somebody maybe like $5 to join in. Hey, everybody's quarantined. Everybody needs a little bit of exercise or something. For $5, you join my Zoom call or whatever it is, and I'm going to be doing in-home exercise that you can follow. That might be, you know, a revenue stream. And the other thing I just thought about too, when I meant to mention in the harder hit industries that I think are really going to struggle after this crisis, and I think this one's probably going to struggle more than I think any other industry, is our event spaces. Because even as the crisis ends, you're going to have a lot of people that are saying, hey, do I really want to plan an event with 50 people? Yep. No, probably not. So I think that those are businesses that are really going to suffer, especially if the only thing that those spaces do is literally their business model is based off people having large gatherings, right? And if you're not going to have a large gathering, are you going to go spend $125 an hour or more to rent out a space for an event or a major fundraiser or what have you? Probably not. So there's going to be a lot of innovation that I think is going to have to take place here, but it may not necessarily all be a bad thing, because when you do innovate and when you use technology, you sometimes build in methods of efficiency that may be more financially beneficial to your company than the way you were operating before.
Yeah, that's a great point, Jabari. I was thinking about the event spaces for sure. And even just open spaces in general, you know, when you think about the fact that the Olympics are canceled till next year and, you know, things like that, this is really getting ready to be a new normal that we will all have to adjust to. So any other questions for Jabari before we wrap up? I think we managed to stay on time. Nat, even though we started a little late, I think we stayed on time.
So before you go, Jabari, we want to say thank you. Remember, you can find some information in the chat box about how to get in touch with Jabari as the president of the West Philadelphia Corridor Collaborative. We want to make sure that we're amplifying the businesses in the collaborative. We'll do our best to connect with you after this. If you need any marketing help, Mom Your Business is hosting a Marketing Made Easy workshop. That's Tuesday, March 31st at 6:30 p.m. This was scheduled to be a live event, but as you all know, we're going virtual. It's going to be an easy way for you to develop a marketing plan. You're going to combine digital and traditional marketing, but much, much easier. I am dropping the link for that event in the chat space.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
There you have it. All right.
Are we
So
gonna tag?
that's it. I don't
So
have
you can
anything else.
follow Mom Your Business on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and look for Teachers and as well. Thank you all for attending, and we'll see you at the next Venture Cafe.
Hey, folks, I will say one real quick thing, which is we are hoping, fingers crossed, 90% or so that Councilmember Jamie Gautier will be on Venture Cafe virtual next week.
Cool.
Oh, nice.
So look for that. And also when we publish it, if you don't mind spreading it to the community, I know she's really excited to have an opportunity to chat with folks.
Cool. Awesome.
Right.
Thank
Hey,
you so
guys.
much. Have a good night.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.